the gentleman in question is still a member, and nothing has changed pertaining to that. And we're having internal discussions and reviewing the situation.
So he's not going to be expelled by the organization? Well, let me ask it this way. What does your constitution say about someone who behaves in the manner that he's behaved, or someone who announces plans to form a new party? Does that not violate the MK Party's constitution?
Well, look, there's been a number of transgressions on the constitution. By the way, the same constitution that was drafted by the person in question, Floyd Shivambu. And in many of the prescripts of the Constitution, it states, that, for instance, you are on probation for 24 months. You cannot form another political party. And there's a number of other things that point to some of those transgressions, including, by the way, one of those that led to, him being removed from his seat and redeployed elsewhere. So, yes, there have been transgressions in the Constitution. But what we're doing internally is that, we're not people in leadership that take rash decisions. We apply our minds. And we need to understand what is this thing that he's coming up with. I mean, he's a member of Umkhonto weSizwe. And to account, to a great extent, he has to account to us as the leaders of Umkhonto weSizwe. I mean, he's an ordinary member. He's wanted to go and set up this initiative. What is this initiative? If we're talking about Umkhonto weSizwe being the platform that ought to unify black people, what is this consultative process that he's undergoing? So we want to see what he's obviously going to say on Friday. We are tracking, his activities, his interviews, and we'll make a determination with the guidance of the leadership and the president.
Okay. So we were told that he's going to move to Parliament and be a member of Parliament, but then he wasn't on the list. How do you explain that? And even before he made his own announcements, I remember there were already issues being raised around him not being on the list.
Upon further review of when a person leaves office, you now get access to certain documentation, and as part of that handover process, which he still has to thoroughly hand over. There were things that we picked up that we felt could be concerning for the party if he were to be sent to Parliament. As a law-abiding organization, as an organization that serves the people, that leads lawmakers in Parliament, we can't find ourselves in a situation where we have a member there that's not going to necessarily have the full interests of the party at heart. And that decision, remember, had to be taken very quickly, over and above the fact that he's obviously ongoing with his own consultation process, which that one we will come to a conclusion and an understanding as to what it is that he wants to do there, and then obviously make a determination.
What is it that you've picked up about Floyd Shivambu as the MK Party? What was he doing so wrong to necessitate his removal as Secretary General and not be added on the list to Parliament?
Well, the first one pertains to the Constitution as you stated. He undertook an international trip without the approval of the president when he stated that it was the president that approved that trip. That was a total lie, and he confirms that. He's confirmed off the back of that presser when he gave him a platform to speak. And he stated that he effectively apologizes, and it was in effect a misreading of the situation. But the reality is we're dealing with a person here who misrepresented the facts, misrepresented the president, misrepresented the organization, and put the organization into disrepute. That's why the statement that was released by myself, you'd have noticed we waited the whole day before we could even release that statement. Because, as is the case right now, we apply our minds as leaders. We don't just take knee-jerk reactions, with our fellow members and leaders. So only then, later on in the evening, and I'd had an extensive conversation, by the way, with the president, consulting on this. We then released a statement, and that statement was approved by everyone who's in the leadership. And that's what it is. We've never reversed our posture on that statement. It still stays, and that's why it led to the result.
Where does this claim come from that he tried to topple the president and he wanted to take over the MK Party? In fact, one of the things he said was that someone went and gave an intelligence report about him to President Jacob Zuma, which was riddled with lies. I think he said you are the one that gave the president.
Yes, he said me, yeah.
Yeah. Did you give the president an intelligence report of sort about him?
Firstly, I'm not part of the intelligence advisory to the president. So where would I conjure up an intelligence report in the first place? And who am I to, advise the president, a person who himself, whose DNA is, form of the back of intelligence? Who am I to advise the president on intelligence? Here's the reality and the truth. There was no intelligence report. Those were transcripts of communication that he had with people that he knows whom he had those conversations with, which implicated him, and which were very disparaging to some of the members, and which were dangerous in their own nature to the
So you were
organization.
speaking bad about some of the leaders and members of the MK party.
There was discussions around.
This is another side of Nhlamulo Ndhlela responding to Floyd Shivambu's public statements that he was a druggie, a person who's using alcohol too much. So this is how he responded. And Floyd Shivambu now is in action building a new party. Please leave your comment.